Okay, so finally, here is a new command for you. It's called Kafka consumer groups. And we press enter and we get the full documentation. So what is this command? This command is to be able to list all the consumer groups, describe a consumer group, delete consumer group info, or reset consumer group offsets. So what are the arguments? It takes a bootstrap server, which is required, okay? And then it takes a bunch of options. So we'll have a go and see what we can do with it, okay? And as you can see, we can play and do a lot of things. So we'll do Kafka consumer groups. The bootstrap server is 127.0.0.1.9092, which, by the way, you can write localhost 9092. This is the exact same thing. Now I'm going to specify a list like this, minus list. Press enter. And as we can see, we have 4 consumer groups. So you may say, wait, that's a bit odd. Didn't we have 2 consumer groups only? My first application and my second application? And my answer to you is, well, when you use the console consumer and you don't specify the group, it just generates a random console consumer for you. So with a random number. So this is why we have 4 consumer groups so far. So now we need to learn more about these consumer groups. So let's do a describe, okay? And on the group, and we can specify group my second application, for example, and press enter. Now it says consumer group, my second application has no active members. Yes, that's right, because we have stopped every console consumer. And if we look at it, it says, okay, I've been reading from this topic and 3 partitions, partition 0, 2, and 1. And the current offset I've been reading at is 11, 13, and 10 based on the partition number. And by the way, the log is also at the end is 11, 13, and 10, and the lag is 0. So lag 0 means that, yes, indeed, the console consumer is reading and has read all the data. Now, what happens if we do a describe, but on my first application? Okay, we do a describe on my first application. And now what we see is that the current offset is 9, 11, and 9, while the log end offset is 11, 13, and 10. And so we have a lag of 2, 2, and 1. So that means that my application 1, my first application, currently is lagging. It needs to catch up on a few messages. So that's obvious. We'll verify this behavior right now. So we'll do a console consumer, and the group ID is going to be my first application. Press enter. And as you can see, yes, we have 5 messages that were lagging. So 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1 equals 5. And so these 5 messages have been lagging and we just caught up. And then if we do a describe again on my first application, then we see that the current offset is equal to the log end offset, and now the lag is 0. So that's super, super important. You can have fun describing every single thing. So we can describe this one, for example. So let's just describe it. And this is a console consumer. So here we'll see a much greater lag. Okay, 8, 9, and 7, and so on. Now let's just start a consumer in the other window just to see what happens. We'll start a consumer with my first application. And now I'm going to start describe my consumer group, my first application. And what we see, I'll just extend it right here, is that now there is active consumer. So we don't have that error message anymore. And so we get that the consumer reading on partition 0 has this consumer ID and is coming from this host, and then etc. for partition 1 and partition 2. So basically what that means is that when you start consuming, you can run this command and see which applications are consuming or which machine is consuming onto your topic, which is super handy. So that's it for the basics of Kafka's consumer groups. In the next lecture, we'll see how we can reset offsets and have a play with this more.